The social media space is broken. Some would say that the powers that be have too much power that be. And I would tend to agree. Wouldn't you, Mr. Travis Wright?
Well, you're so rhymey, Mr. Joel Comm.
I'm feeling rhymey. I got it all up in my voice this morning. It's because I found my voice. Well, actually, we found the CEO of Voice.com. Salah Zalatimo is with us this morning to talk all things social media, decentralization, and yet centralization, and what the future of Voice is all about. Salah, welcome to Bad Crypto.
Thank you very much, Joel, and thank you, Travis. Very happy to be here, and I absolutely agree. Social media is broken, and unfortunately, what we've come to depend on to empower us and to unite us as a society has ended up really deceiving and dividing us, unfortunately. And I think, given what's going on now with the lockdown, those flaws that a lot of the flaws of social media today, we've all known about, and we can all, not many will argue, but it's really all been exposed in this process. And you really think about, the beauty of social media was that it was making a global community. It was connecting everybody. But here we are in a lockdown, and I couldn't feel more disconnected than I do right now. And so I think there are a host of issues that if we were able to go back in time and rebuild social media platforms from scratch, we would do things quite differently. And I happen to be in the fortunate circumstance of being able to do just that.
Well, why don't you elaborate just a little bit on what the problems are? Why is it broken?
Well, I think the first thing that we can likely agree on is that we don't trust social media anymore. Actually, we don't really trust media generally anymore. And I
just don't trust people.
There might be something there, right? Maybe this has nothing to do with digital. Maybe this is actually physical to begin with, right? But I think that if there is a seed of distrust in people, social media has allowed that to germinate and to flourish, really. Because now, at least in the physical world, when you're talking to somebody, you're talking to a human being. Now we live in a digital world where we don't even know if who we're talking to is real or not. We don't know if the information they're sharing is real or not. We don't know if this trend that is emerging on a platform is authentic. Is it actually a trend, or are there just millions of bots out there gaming the algorithm? When you're logging into a website with a social media login, is it actually just to make your life easier, a one-click login, or are they going to be tracking you all over the web now and secretly collecting data and selling it to other people? So I think trust is gone. That's problem number one. I think problem number two is that it is now in the hands of commercial interests more than it is in the hands of social interests. So once you begin to start making money through advertising, meaning selling people's attention to other third parties, as a platform without any accountability and transparency, that is a rabbit hole that is hard to resist the temptation to go down. And I think our friend, Mr. Zuckerberg, has shown very little hesitation in going down that rabbit hole as far as possible.
Yeah, and I would maybe even say part three is the censorship aspect of social media, right? It's like that right there has been so interesting. You were just talking about our good friend Mark Zuckerberg. He currently has been banning people who are creating groups and events around protesting this stay-at-home order, right? People are, one of our rights on the Constitution, Bill of Rights, is, hey, we have a right to assemble peacefully. And they've taken that away. They say that, there's been people in Raleigh, North Carolina, get arrested because protesting is not an essential activity, right? So our rights are not essential activities now. Now, when it comes to social media, we're seeing a big problem. And actually, this is how Joel and I got going in the blockchain space originally. I had written an article on Huffington Post about the election and all the problems everybody was talking about. And it's like, well, you know what? We can bitch about the problem, or we can solve it, and we could have voter ID, and we could have blockchain voting, and that that could make the whole system a little more transparent. As a result of that, a group reached out to Joel and I about helping them with the project and blockchain based. It was going to be sort of a Reddit type of Twitter type of thing. It was called Deep Sea. And it was like, hey, let's take a look at every piece of content. Let's have the audience go out and search for bias and all this other stuff. And then he changed his mind and wanted to do a YouTube. And then if you don't have, you know, a clear vision at the helm, then things crash down. So that thing ended up going away. But it got Joel and I talking and saying, hey, let's create a podcast around blockchain and start looking for solutions that can make society better. Now, I think it's one of the things that we've really, you know, had a North Star on, is because both of us are from the marketing world. And so social media over the last decade has been amazing. And then something happened where it just tweaked it. And now they've turned it, social media, against us. They ban content. They say who can have a voice and who can't have a voice. And maybe let's talk about that. And how does voice begin to solve some of those issues that we just talked about?
Absolutely, Travis. And I think what you're describing is, I would abstract it a little bit and say, you know, why are we even there? Why is Facebook in a position to even be considering manual censorship, or manually and subjectively making those types of decisions? Well, it's because the platform itself is flawed from its foundation. If you are at 2 billion, 3 billion users, I mean, I think real users are probably less than a billion, or definitely less than a billion on the platform. So if you're talking the hundreds of millions of people on a platform, and, you know, 15 years into existence, and, you know, having already earned something like $500 billion in revenue, and you have groups of people sitting in rooms actually debating whether something is and isn't okay in 2020, something's gone wrong. And so that's exactly the kind of thing that we feel we can re-architect from scratch to empower the community to make those types of decisions, right? We don't believe that the platform should be the one determining whether something is and isn't okay. We believe the community on the platform should be the one determining that. And so we are taking a very specific and intentional product point of view here, where we plan on building tools for community self-governance. It's one of our core values.
Mm. So, all right, let's rewind a little bit. Let's go to voice.com. This is a domain that the word on the street is that Block.one paid $25 million for. Is that correct?
I think the actual number is 30 million, but that is correct.
Wow. Is that the most ever paid for a domain name?
I think it is. I'm not sure, but I do think it is.
You beat sex.com, I think. Congratulations.
What's more important, having a voice or having sex? Who knows?
Well, both are important. Very important.
Having a voice during sex, I suppose, also might be important. Okay, so 30 million. Since that's straight from the horse's mouth here, that's a number that we'll use going forward. And we've gotten access, although it took some time to get invited into the beta. Which was sad for us. And then it took us some difficulty, in particular around the struggle to get verified as an individual human being. Now, here's the question. Is there an inconsistency in wanting to have a free social media site where you have your voice and can say what you want to say and have your privacy, but give all of this information in order to be verified? There's some tension there, isn't there?
I think at that level, those two ideas seem like they might conflict. And so I think in order to understand it a little bit better, it's important to put them into practical context a little bit. So on one hand, you can say everyone having a voice means a free platform where anyone can say anything they want at all times. However, there are problems with that, right? So the first major problem is there are laws that limit what one can say on a platform. So the only way to truly have a wide open platform with no rules behind it is to somehow find a way to avoid sovereign jurisdiction. And many have attempted it. I don't think anybody has fully succeeded. I think even the infamous 4chan is is an example of that. Sorry if I got that name wrong, so that's not an aspiration of Voice. We're not trying to be the impossible to govern or impossible to find organization where anything goes. We're trying to be something a little bit different. We're trying to be a community of voices where you know who you're speaking to, where you know that everybody on the platform is authentic and genuine. It means that we will all have to provide a significant amount of personal information and personal data to be able to verify life and identity, so that we are not subject to bot manipulation, so that we are not in a world where the social norms that we have in the physical world are kind of set aside and hidden behind a mask of anonymity. So Voice while it will not be a free-for-all type of environment where you can say whatever you want at any point, it will be a environment that is that empowers and respects the individual. We will protect your data and your rights to your data. People will be able to own their data, and we will be very proactive about what we're going to do with that data, if anything. So it is about privacy, and it is about identification, but it's about authenticity as well. And so the struggle that you went through with getting verified is more of a product lesson for us, in the sense that we want to make sure that is not, that can't be a cumbersome process. And so I'll tell you that, Travis, your experience getting registered was really gave us a lot of fuel and a lot of motivation to find a solution for that quickly. And so we will absolutely have a much better and a much more intuitive and a much easier way to verify identity that does not require using a government ID of any sort.
Mm. Yeah, that is interesting. You made a lot of really interesting points right there. For one, yeah, the process was frustrating. I got to the point where I was just like, man, okay, whatever. It doesn't matter. I don't. And Joel's like, come on. And I'm like, dude, we can't do a podcast right now because I'm pissed. It's not going to be helpful. Like, it's going to. So I got to say, though, that your team, they reached out and were very helpful. And I think everybody that we've dealt with at Voice, once we finally talked to somebody at Voice, has been just, stellar. So
thank you.
So great work there. I want to actually go back to the self-governance question, because you brought up at the end before Joel's question, is you mentioned that in a lot of these social media profiles and platforms, there are a ton of bots, and you can tell that it happens. Like anytime that the president tweets, immediately on Twitter, you can just see just massive amounts of just the same sort of comments and the same thing. So there are definitely bots. There's a lot of people out there, don't get me wrong, who hate Trump, but that you can just see, and you go look on Instagram, and he'll say something and you don't see that. And he'll say something on Facebook and they won't see that, because people who don't like him don't actually see their profiles. And so I just look at how it is on different platforms, on his different profiles. And sometimes it's like night and day. Like on Instagram, it almost looks like he's got 95% support. On Twitter, it looks like he's got 95% people hating him. And so there's this problem with these bot networks, and it's very evident on Reddit as well, how these bot networks sort of utilize and game the algorithm. And then also with Facebook, so I have business in the Philippines, and there's actually a business in the Philippines whose job they have like multiple floors of this building. I think it's in Makati, where they basically are sitting all day and authorizing certain posts on Twitter to come through. And a lot of times they're seeing horrible stuff. They're seeing, things that nobody should see. And these people only last about 3 months at the job before they go crazy. And so how are you building in these self-moderation platforms or tools within the ecosystem to avoid, content that's illegal? You don't want to see certain things, and we don't want to see them. And is part of that connecting it to your real identity? And then how are some of those tools set up so we can eliminate a lot of that manipulation?
I mean, you've covered a lot of really good points there, Travis. So the first thing I would say is that I think Reddit is probably the extreme edge of this, because it is obviously an anonymous platform. And not only is it anonymous, I mean, it's built to be. I mean, anyone within Reddit could just turn on anonymous for a second, right? And so that's what it's there for. And I would say that to the earlier point that Joel was making, if you want an environment where you can just say whatever you want without any real recourse, you almost need to be anonymous at that point, because it would be difficult to attach things to your actual identity if you really wanted to kind of just let out what you're feeling deep inside. But let me ask you a question first. Of all the social platforms that exist outside, which one do you think has the fewest fake accounts? Or let me ask the question a different way. Which one would you say has the least amount of fraud? Like if you see somebody on this social network, that's likely to be who they are.
LinkedIn. It's the only one. The rest of them, complete. And it's I think that even some of the verified accounts on Twitter aren't actually even real. I've seen some that I've questioned them. So again, is it a narrative? Are they just trying to push certain things through? Because you mentioned that earlier. We're like, oh, do we even know if this is really trending? Like, this seems like a weird trend that just pops up. And then there's other ones that have so much more content, and then those get squashed, and those trends don't even show up. And so you can see how that manipulation goes on. But I think the best answer would be LinkedIn.
I 100% agree. To me, it's the only one. It's the only one that I know that when I see somebody on LinkedIn, I'm pretty sure they're real. Why? Well, it's their photo. Obviously there's a business purpose to it. So people are doing it to kind of make money. So there is a personal career, financial incentive to just be forthright about it. But also you're attaching yourself to your company. You're attaching yourself to your colleagues. Like there is an actual cost for you being untruthful or inflammatory on LinkedIn, because it actually could affect your career and the money and your family, etc.
Could you maybe use aged LinkedIn accounts? Like, you got to be on LinkedIn for 5 years or more. And then because somebody can't just go create a LinkedIn and then go create a voice. Maybe there's some way like you could log in with your LinkedIn account.
Well, you're onto something, Travis. I'll leave it at that. So
Travis is onto something.
Uh-oh.
Well, I deal with fraud all the time. I have a verified account on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And for some reason, my photos are used for scammer accounts, not just for people actually using my name or some variation of my name and trying to scam people out of Bitcoin, but also my photos are used in other names to scam vulnerable women, right, around the world, especially
because he's so sexy. Mr. Joel Comm is so sexy.
Because I'm a nice looking guy, right? I think my pictures, I'm this decent, average looking all American guy, and older, I've got silver, salt and pepper hair, and so I look trustworthy, and I am, but I have to report accounts all the time. And what's really frustrating to me, especially on Facebook, is they have facial recognition built in to the platform. It'll tag me in photos. Is this you? Is this you? And yet they can't use that to go, this exact photo was already used on somebody's profile. Could it be fake? No, they use all the freaking time. And I'm wondering if there's like a lawsuit against them, even though they eventually pull them down, they don't stop the process of people using them, and then it costs me time and money and emotional duress. We're talking years of this. We're talking hundreds of fake profiles.
Why do you think they don't take that action then?
That's a really, really good question. I mean, they do when they're reported. I'm fortunate because I'm verified. Because I'm verified, I have a higher priority when something is reported. I feel bad for people who don't have verified accounts because they have no priority to my knowledge.
Yeah.
So I have had the ability to get stuff taken down, but it should never go up in the first place.
Yeah, I agree with you. And to me, it is a fundamental misalignment of incentives. I like
that, a fundamental alignment of misincentives.
Misalignment.
Misalignment of incentives.
Misalignment. I like it. I like fundamental alignment of misincentives better. I think that's that better describes
it.
I think you're right. Actually, that is a better one. That's where we talk about architecting with integrity. That's where we talk about can't be evil. If you are setting up a business where you're garnering people's attention, and the way that you're going to make money is by selling their attention to a third party, and everything you do is in a black box and it's unverifiable and untrackable, do you really care if it's a fake account or not? I come from the media world, and the advertising industry is famous for this. You don't really know if an actual human being saw your ad or a computer saw your ad. There's no real way of verifying it. And if you actually dig into it, like the methods they use of verification are kind of funny. I mean, it's, like really trying to like use a variety of metrics to say this is more likely to be a real person. But honestly, if you're a mildly committed bad actor, you can devise a computer system or botnet to easily fool whatever tools are in place. So you're really only filtering out the laziest of bad actors. And so, it is a real thing. If a bot sees an ad on Facebook and Facebook gets paid for it, do they care about that bot?
Right.
I would say no.
Yeah.
And that's why, their numbers have consistently grown over time, and why they spent so many billions of dollars on WhatsApp and all the other acquisitions. The Instagram, I think, was probably one of the best, probably one of the best acquisitions of all time. They bought that thing for like $1 billion. And then how valuable is that platform now? I would say it's probably 100x that, if not more, just because of how, how sticky the platform is. So let's maybe talk about Voice a bit and some of the vision of this, because Joel and I, we played around with it. Right now, it seems kind of like Medium a bit, right? Where you're able to go in and kind of create long form thoughts more so than sort of short form like Twitter or even Facebook. And so maybe tell us the vision of Voice in its current state, and maybe where you see it going to over its life cycle.
Absolutely. So Voice, we launched our beta on February 14th of this year. And if you can imagine trying to architect a social media platform that can run on a blockchain or on a few blockchains, it's actually a significant it's a significant technical accomplishment just to have the throughput to be able to do that, to be able to handle that level of engagement. So this first beta was really focused on the under the hood, like the actual EOS protocol, and getting it to a place where it could handle the scale of a Facebook ultimately. And so most of what you see today is really more focused on that technical side of things. And so we've been watching a lot of how the blockchains are performing, what the read rate is, what the write rate is, and trying to get it to a place where we feel comfortable kind of unleashing it on the world. And so I joined the company about 3 weeks before that beta launched, and my focus has been on taking that incredible tech that they've built and the incredible core infrastructure, and putting on top of it a very user-friendly and engaging user experience. So my focus really is we will have a big update launch later this summer. And that will include a lot of the updates that we're talking about from a UI UX standpoint. And so right now, what you're seeing is very much focused on the content creation, similar to the way that that you would see with a Medium, but it is really just the bare bones of it. And so I can't get too much into the what the specifics of what those changes will be yet. They're just kind of not ready for prime time. But I can say that you will be able to get into the platform and register with significantly fewer steps and requirements. So you will not need a government ID, and it will take far fewer steps. However, we will still maintain, we'll still focus on maintaining a really tight-knit community and a trusted and verified community.
Well,
So,
let's talk a little bit about the function of it. For those of you watching on video, I'm sharing my screen, and so this is my profile right here. There's a couple things I don't like about this that I hope you're going to fix. The first is my picture is a mugshot, because when I had to put it up for verification, it says take off your glasses. Well, there's no photos of me online without my glasses because I'm blind without them. And I didn't realize that this photo was going to be used as my profile photo, and I don't use my middle name anywhere, but because of identity, I put in my full name. It says right now, settings coming soon. When will I be able to customize this, upload whatever photo of me I want to use and have my name displayed like I want?
Well, you're not the only one. And so we will be fixing that in the update. So when the update comes out, your profile will be customizable. You will be able to change your display name. You don't need to use your middle name. And you can have multiple profile pictures. So it is something that we're aware of, and while it sounds trivial, our focus was primarily under the hood, and we wanted to just kind of put up our MVP. And we learned a lot of lessons about on the edges, things like make sure it's very clear to people that this image will be their profile photo and cannot be edited for the time being. So thank you for bearing with us on that, but it is something we're very aware of. And even though it sounds like a small point, it's actually a very, very major point in our relaunch. So
well, the good part is nobody's going to steal that picture to use, to scam people. So
absolutely, and it's still a closed beta, so the exposure is very limited. And so before it opens up to the world, we will be able to modify that.
Yeah, it's cool. So I actually had one of the top posts in travel. One of my first posts that I put in there, I posted a bunch of photos that I had from Iceland, and it went pretty big. And then actually Joel, he decided to be the top voice on that post, and I think he cost him 2,900 voice tokens or whatever to do that. And so it was a really interesting process. And then now if you find that post, he has the top voice on that. He's stuck with that top voice on that. So now I have, there it is right here. So now I have over 5,000 total voice, and Joel's sad because he has less.
Yeah, Travis, can I ask a question around that?
Sure.
So here I am, I'm the winning voice, and let's explain. Actually, let me back up to another tab just so people can so we can maybe I can vote something up here that that shows what happens. Okay, so here I am in the feed of all, because there's a bunch of categories here. And if I scroll down and I look for something that doesn't have a huge amount of voice, here we go. There's one right here. Add a positive word to this jar that starts with the first letter of your name. And I look here, and the current top voice is Eric Vance Walton. Now, if I want to become the top voice, I can do it for 540 voice. I've got 3,200, so I can go ahead and do that. I'm going to voice it, and boom, there it is. Now I'm on top. Now, to me, this is advertising my profile. Is that right? This is a two-part question. Let me ask that part first. This is like advertising my profile. Is that right?
It is, yes. And I want to ask some questions about this. So it is advertising your profile, and in the latest update, it also allows you to elevate one of the comments in the thread to the top comment.
It lets me elevate a comment, like my own comment or somebody else's?
Any comment. So right now you can't do it yet because you're still like, the game hasn't ended, so somebody else can outvoice you. You're just the current top voice. It ends after 24 hours. Once that happens, you now have more kind of flexibility on what you can do with the page. So one of the things that we've added is the ability to choose a comment that you want to highlight and raise it to the top of the thread.
So you do that on okay, here we go.
So now here I am. I'm the winning voice on Travis's post, and I don't know how much I spent on it, but it was a whole lot, like 2,400 or so. But the post isn't really being active anymore. So my question is what's the point of being the top voice after the peak of views on that post? Because now that I might be the guy that's advertising there on top, but if people aren't going there anymore, who cares?
Like the top post of the all-time, or top post of the month, or top post of the week, sort of like how Reddit has that. I don't see that feature here currently yet.
Yeah, so let me reframe this. So I think the last word you mentioned, Travis, is a key one, which is yet. So to frame this conversation a little bit, we plan on being in beta for a year. So the full version of our app will not launch until the first quarter of next year. And so the other way I would ask the question is, what do you think it should be? Because
there's no real reward, right? I feel like that if I win, that after a period of time, maybe 2 weeks or 30 days, that I get that voice back, right? So I spent it, I put it out there. It's like my money is being used.
You staked it, maybe. You staked it on
I
a post.
Right. I stake it on the post, but now that it's gone, it makes me think, oh, well, now I don't know that I want to be top voice when it's really high, because it's not going to be worth anything. It's not worth the amount of tokens I'm spending.
No, I hear you. And and agreed. So up until you're the winning voice, you earn a return every time somebody outbids you. So it is very clear that playing the game has a benefit. The question is, why do I even want to win?
It's the risk. It's that risk. It's you're betting that, okay, somebody else is going to come after me and outvoice me, and I'm going to earn a profit, and the person who made the post is going to earn a profit. But there's no real benefit right now.
Yeah. And there's no time. There's no time to know that, oh, the top voice on this one is chosen in 14 minutes. It's like an auction type of a thing. And then people might be fighting for it, or they're going, nope, I don't know how much time is left on this. So I don't want to do that. I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
It's true.
Gamification of it all.
I would say to you that think about this as voice being a new economy around content, right? So the bare bones of that economy is the concept of a token, which is proxying attention. So we got step one. Step two is working that token into every interaction on the platform, and then creating opportunities for earning more. Voiceit is the beginning of an opportunity to earn more tokens. And so what I would say to you is the path forward from us from here, instead of me giving you answers to these questions, what I can give you is the path that we're heading down to explore these answers. That makes sense. So we know that it is so far, the game of Voiceit has been very sticky and very effective, except for this last question of, well, do I even really want to win? And if I don't want to win, then you kind of a pattern develops where you say, I know that generally speaking, people don't tend to voice things over 3,000 tokens. So I'll play the game until 3,000 and then I'll stop because I might lose my money, you know? So potentially giving the money back after a period of time is one thing. Or maybe you're staking it and maybe you get a cut of all the tokens that piece has created. Right?
So then you're incented to be an early voicer, because if you're coming in for 2 or 3 voice and this thing gets up to 3,000 voice and you're able to take a cut of that, then you just made a wise content investment.
So you see where this is headed, right? Is that if we're now in a world where we've actually created an economy around media and around attention that doesn't exist today, we can actually architect every interaction and every element of this platform into an economic model of some sort. So you're investing in content. Imagine if you could stake people. Imagine if you could stake an influencer. Imagine, I know that when Joel and Travis come on this, they're going to have an incredible following and they're going to put up some really great content. And I want to make sure that, you know, I'm part of that. And so I will stake their invitation to the platform and stake their activities, in perpetuity or for a period of time. And a portion of that is shared back. I mean, you can, once you switch the mindset into, this is an economic model around attention. We're engineering a new economy, a digital economy that is actually equitable and fair instead of feudal and black box, the way that Facebook and social media is today. Well, all of a sudden now, you don't need to think of things as binary, as like, I put this, I get that. Things can be on a spectrum now. You put in a little bit, you get a little bit more of this, and then there's a little more of that. It becomes much more nuanced and transparent.
Yeah, so the token itself, the voice token, there's questions, that we have and that several of our audience have asked around the tokenomics, right? How many voice tokens are there? Because you're giving away 100 every day to every account that, you claim them. And the second part of that is, do you see these tokens then being tradable on exchanges and people can put them into the platform? You know, they can buy them and use them, or is everything going to be totally organic?
So we're still working on the off-platform token activity, but what I can say is this: for now, the token is meant to be on platform. We know that the possibility of it going off platform is definitely there, and we know that the possibility of some participants in the community and on the platform may want to purchase additional tokens more than they're actually able to organically earn. And so those are things that we are definitely very focused on figuring out. And those are things that also have a lot of implications and a lot of dependencies, especially when you start talking about sovereignty and financial systems and regulations on a country by country basis. You really you start touching, the complexity grows dramatically. So for now, we're focused on building a platform that people love, a platform that is transparent, that is open and authentic. And then, you know, if we're successful there, the next set of problems will be good problems to have.
Now, while you were saying this, I was thinking about this because there's a bunch of other sort of blockchain projects that are popping up in the social media space, and some of them are doing some interesting things. Now, would you guys ever consider, you know, maybe open sourcing the Voice platform for other people to sort of build new social media platforms on top of what you guys have already built?
Sure. I mean, our goal is to give communities a voice everywhere, and creating a more equitable and transparent and just social media ecosystem. And if the best way of doing that is to open source our platform, we'll do that. If the best way of doing that is giving our platform for free for communities to build on, we'll do that. So we're trying to keep a North Star, which is, you know, about allowing people to have a voice and to earn a voice. And the next step we're crystal clear about, and every step after that gets a little bit more and more directional, because we don't want to anchor ourselves too much into what it should be. We just want to take one step at a time and let the community shape it more. And so if that's the direction that it takes, that'd be amazing.
Nobody spends $30 million on a domain unless either they're insane or they have a grand master plan for monetization. And so how is Block.one going to turn this into something that's profitable?
Well, I think the answer might be both to your previous point, because in order to have a plan and ambitions as big as Block.one does, many people may call you insane, and that's where that's where the greatest things in society have come from. So
absolutely.
I'm actually very, very proud of that. And I think that I joined this company because what I found in Brendan and in Dan and the rest of the Block.one team is not just an ambitious group and not just a wicked smart group of people, but committed people who are not afraid to throw down and get after it, because everyone in the world will tell you that social media is broken. Nobody's doing much about it because the challenge is huge. Talk about David and Goliath, right? Printing billions of dollars a year, and to even think about going up against that, many would just call insane.
Yeah.
But you put down 30 million bucks, that means we mean business. And
right. So where is the business? That's the question.
So the core economic model today around media is generally around advertising. The second piece would be subscriptions. You know that since 2011, from 2011 to 2018, and I'm sorry my data is not more fresh than that, but I happen to have this data point in my back pocket. The news industry, their revenues have been cut in half over that 8-year period. They lost $15 billion in industry revenue in the US. Or that may be global, sorry, but $15 billion. In that same time period, Facebook and Google's revenues collectively approach $1 trillion. So the advertising business and the advertising method of monetization for media is no longer viable. Companies have been going out of business left and right. 250,000 journalists have lost their jobs in the past 20 years. I think 8,000 alone last year. So it is not viable anymore. And in order for us to keep media and to keep news actually working in our interest and in society's interest, which is the whole point it exists anyway, we've got to find a better economic model. The Voice token presents that. We can now tokenize attention, and therefore we can now create a platform where every bit of attention given or garnered is an exchange of a token, and ultimately that token will have fiat value, because as the demand for the platform increases, demand for the token will increase because more people will engage. And so you can think of it similar to airline miles. At some point, airline miles become so big and so popular that it in and of itself becomes a currency.
Right. People do trade and broker them. You can buy miles.
Absolutely. And so that is definitely the direction that we're heading in. And as I was kind of saying before, we know what the North Star is. We know where we're going to get to eventually. The exact steps we're going to take to getting there is still unclear, because it's still, the regulatory environment is still maturing around this. So we have to work with regulators to chart a path that everybody's comfortable with to getting there. So I wouldn't tell you exactly how that's going to happen just yet, but it is a milestone that I feel is inevitable.
I'll tell you, it's one of the reasons why we got so excited about Voice originally was, we followed Dan Larimer from BitShares over to Steam, and then we're like, oh, here he is cruising on over to EOS. And wow, this could be really interesting if you build this platform, because not only has he done it before, he's done it twice before. He has coins that have been in the top 20 forever, right? And so we're like, you know what? Wow, this Voice thing sounds awesome. Joel and I, hey, let's create a podcast, because we think this could be something that could be really big when they got the horsepower behind it to do that. So maybe as we sort of wrap up, how has it been, working with Dan Larimer and the technical minds over there? Because it sounds like to me that, the platform and the technology and just the mind behind Dan is just a really sharp dude. And so that's what put a lot of faith in us right at the beginning.
Same. Like I said, when I met Brendan and Dan, I saw two very unique individuals. You asked specifically about Dan and working with him on a technical standpoint. I'll first say, as a person, Dan is one of the most principled and committed and passionate people that I've had the opportunity to work with. And so you take that and you pair it with just a one-of-a-kind type of mind, you have something special. And so it's not so, when you meet Dan, you are not surprised at all as to how he's been able to have such an incredible string of successes and such a prolific career thus far at such a young age. He will have an idea, will kick something around. 48 hours later, he will have just gone through a marathon coding session and delivered a pretty complete product single-handedly. The kind of thing that takes a small army 6 months to make. So there's no shortage of like jaw-dropping moments, and I mean literally this happens consistently. And so I'm actually in the position of, for the first time in my career, to be quite frank with you, of trying to keep up with this incredible pace of innovation. And so I will say that we have all the pieces necessary to take a really good run at taking this hill and really pushing social media into the next phase of its existence, and putting this kind of the social media Middle Ages behind us.
Yeah, well, we're all for that. We're cheering for you and for anybody that's seeking to make this kind of impact in the world, because the big social giants, they have too much power, too centralized, and too out of control. So Salah Zalatimo, did I pronounce your last name right? Is it Zalatimo?
Yes, you did. Thank you, Joel.
Nailed it. He is at Salafel on Twitter. And of course, those of you in the beta, you can find myself and Mr. Travis Wright on the Voice platform. Thanks for joining us. And we're going to have you back probably more often than you want to talk to us, because we want to keep up to date on this.
I always enjoy talking to you guys. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. Have a great day and keep sending the feedback.